You have no idea what you're doing or how to do it. You're wasting your time. It's never going to work, and you're going to end up embarrassing yourself. And you're too old. Love that one. Hey now, welcome back to Black Women North of 50. I'm Wynn Helms, your host, and today we're talking about the inner critic. You know the voice. That one that says a whole lot of untruths that feel really true. My guest today is Stevon Lewis, who is a licensed psychotherapist, author, podcaster, speaker. He's done so many things. He has so many accomplishments. And he's an all-around good guy, too, which is kind of cool. Today, he takes me to school about the inner bully, is what he calls it, in his book, Silencing the Inner Bully. This book is not for chumps. You're going to learn something about yourself, whether you want to or not. Stay with me. Let's continue on the journey. As promised, I have Stevon Lewis here to talk about our inner critic. I'm going to let him say some things about the work he's doing now. Go ahead.
Oh, what if I had my own inner critic and I'm like, oh, what do I say about myself? I am Stevon Lewis. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. That's how I refer to myself. But I do lots of things. I have a podcast called How to Talk to High Achievers About Anything. I do some one-to-one work. I've moved kind of from traditional therapy to do more coaching style stuff, just because it lends itself better to imposter syndrome and kind of treating its symptoms. I do speaking behind the scenes. Some of it's forward facing, like you might catch me on a podcast such as yours every now and again. But most of it's kind of behind the scenes and, going into organizations and doing workshops or universities, doing workshops on imposter syndrome with different populations. And the newest thing that I'm doing is delving more into writing. So I've written my workbook, Silencing Your Inner Bully, an acknowledgement journal for imposter syndrome, with the goal of kind of walking people through the therapeutic process. So it really follows what I would do with a client if I were working with them, and it has like all these activities and stuff. But now I'm working on a more traditional book that is an expansion, I'll say, of the conversation around imposter syndrome to talk more about how our thinking plays a role in the reality that we experience and how we can kind of take more control over that so that we aren't as distressed.
As you're talking, I keep thinking inner bully, imposter syndrome are two different things. What's the connection?
So imposter syndrome is the, I guess, outward representation of what the inner bully does to the individual. So they are one and the same. The inner bully is that critical inner voice, lives on the inside of us, is not really helpful, is really designed to hurt us and make us feel terrible about ourselves. And so it focuses on hurting us and using our insecurities and fears and concerns to really beat us up. And what people will see is someone who is, kind of doing amazing things in life and they're accomplishing stuff, but their internal experience is such that they don't kind of attach to that. And I think that imposter syndrome is the label or the term given to that internal experience created by our inner bullies.
Got it. And it has no place. It has no purpose. This
So this is always an interesting conversation. I think oftentimes what happens, and you might know this, better than I do, when it comes to, trauma and trying to reframe it to be something, helpful and powerful, even though it was a bad and unpleasant experience. I think people often do the same thing with the inner bully. I'm from the belief that it does not serve a good purpose, except to kind of help us recognize that we are holding on to untruths about ourselves, and maybe we need to, let go of those. But I get how people want to say, well, how can I have it help me? And my question usually is to people is like, do you go and try to befriend, a real bully? Would you go out and like the person who's making you feel terrible about yourself and, calling you names and, writing disparaging emails about you, would you go and say, hey, let's be best friends? Like, how can we work together so that, you aren't hurting me so much? I don't think we do that. And I wouldn't advise that with the inner bully either.
I'm going to take you to task for a moment
Go for it.
in that, because I need you to take me to school. I think, and let me just speak for myself. I know that before I recognized that people are just not on my side, they're not embracing who I am, I have tried to make them a part of my life. Before I recognize it, that's not going to happen. It's got nothing to do with me.
That if we aren't aware of it first with the inner bully, then our go-to is to try to say, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe this is, something I'm doing that's maybe creating this discord or this adversity or, tension between the two of us if it's a real person. And so maybe I need to kind of check myself. And is there a way that I can show up differently and that person also now receive me differently?
Or just change the dynamic, change the relationship. This isn't what I thought it was going to be, and that's okay. This relationship, this communication, it's not what you thought it was going to be. And there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. It's just this isn't the person. This person's a bully.
Yep. 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 And leave them there. And I think that's really hard for kind of people who are prone to imposter syndrome or struggle with it, to accept themselves and to go with their gut on they know best. This is what it will be, and to not try to fix it, because oftentimes the blame is placed on self, because this is what your inner bully says, is that there's something wrong with you. And, here I come, singing and whispering in people's ears of, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's everything else. Maybe it's the environment. Maybe it's the other individual. And how do you get comfortable being okay with saying, I can recognize it's not me and I can leave them with whatever they're dealing with or struggling with?
I have found that is a difficult thing. And maybe that just comes from a lifetime of, I'm not saying that I have an inner critic that's, anyway.
That's active and actively beating you up at the moment, right?
Oh, yeah, just getting to a level of comfort, finding the lesson in getting rid of the inner bully.
Oh, I was going to say that, like, I think that part of that difficulty, maybe with letting go or letting it be or other people be, could be, based in the idea that when you have an inner bully that's been active for a very long time and beating you up pretty consistently, or, struggling with imposter syndrome, that it's hard to let go of the belief that it is you and to accept that you're okay. And so it makes sense then that part of it is to try to fix it, because inevitably I've told myself, and my inner bully has also kind of supported it, that it was me and I'm the problem. And so there's a bit of understanding, I guess, I have for people where it is difficult to let that go or let other people be and choose you, is because you believe that you're in error. And so if you were in error, then why would you be choosing the thing that makes the mistakes?
Oh, gosh. I didn't want to go to school today, but here we are. Uh, yeah,
I love it.
it's it's complicated. And there's a shame element to it. Am I right? Or is that just a feeling that I have on top of the inner critic?
Oh no, you're dialed in. You are dialed all the way in. That is 100% accurate. Uh,
What's
shame.
the
Yeah, there is a connection with shame. I guess, like, the way I kind of frame it, or the way it was taught to me, was that, guilt is I did something wrong, and shame is there's something wrong with me. And my experience with, imposter syndrome and, helping people recognize and then kind of defend themselves against their inner bully, is this idea that they've accepted over time that there is something wrong with them. And so then it is really attached to shame, that I am somehow flawed, and those flaws continue to make life difficult for me. They continue to keep me from being prepared or skillful enough or having the ability or to even trust myself. And I'm trying to chip away at that shame and say, maybe something happened in your past that created a scenario where that was true for a moment. Also, have you factored in that you've grown and evolved, or that some of the outcomes you get don't really provide evidence to support what your inner bully is telling you.
If you believe you're flawed, there's no way to move forward or get better or anything because you're stuck.
Exactly that. Like, how could you take an approach that I'm good, I should choose me, if I'm saying me is a problem or has issues?
If I'm not enough.
Yeah. Ah, there you go. I like that language.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know anybody who doesn't have an inner bully?
Oh, I say everyone has an inner bully, and I think that the thing I'm trying to get people to do is not have this absolutist kind of mentality when it comes to it, that I need to get rid of it and it's going to be gone forever. That's why I say, silencing as opposed to destroying or something like that, right? Silencing your inner bully. And so the idea is that the inner bully will be there. It will continue to be a nuisance in your life, or try to, or attempt to be. But what we can do is get better at decreasing the frequency, intensity, or duration of those attacks that it has on us. And so I'm saying, well, part of it is, how do we fortify ourselves or build ourselves up enough to where the attacks of the inner bully aren't hurtful? I think in analogies, you've known me long enough, so that the way I think about it is, if your inner bully is a person of same size as you and same strength or whatnot, they hit you, it hurts. But if we find a way to, get some self-defense and build ourselves up, then maybe that hit isn't, as direct or hurt as much. And we can kind of equate it to something like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum who hits you. Yeah, they gave it everything they had, but it didn't really impact us. And so that's the place I'm trying to get people to.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about how you think the inner bully evolves with age, particularly if there's a difference between inner bully for women and inner bully for men north of 50. What do you think?
That's a really good question. I've never thought about a difference based on gender. And that's primarily, I guess, because, I work with both men and women and recognize that the inner bully just does its job of trying to hurt people. So it'll use whatever it can. So I'm sure that, like, some of the stuff that it uses to beat up men or women is specific to I guess, doubts or insecurities they might have based on their gender. Well, I guess what I think happens, when you talk about north of 50, is that there's just a constant evolution of the inner bully in general. So things that we worried about in our 20s can't be used anymore to beat us up because we kind of surpassed that stuff. Whereas, like, if you're in college, it's going to say, oh, you're never going to graduate. Can't really say that if you've already graduated, right? But what it does do is it continues to evolve as you do. And so what I try to teach or help people understand is that as you continue to level up in life, that could be in career, that could be in relationships, that could be just in aging. The inner bully is going to try to meet you at that new level and cast a level or a cloud of self-doubt over you that you will believe. And it'll use stuff that feels real, and that maybe is kind of on the fence of sounding like it could be true, but the evidence doesn't support it. And so for men and women that are north of 50, it might say, have you accomplished enough? Did you do enough to be prepared for retirement? Are you going to age out of possibility finding love, or all sorts of things, none of which are based in evidence of being true for the future. I mean, unless the inner bully knows the future, which it doesn't, and unless we know the future of how things are going to turn out, which we don't, then you can't just go around and blindly believe that stuff.
I can't get past the fact that there's nothing to learn from the inner bully. There's just got to be something.
The disappointment is real. Look at it. And
There's
your
got
face
to
is
be
like,
something.
It's only a bully. That's really what it is. It's just a bully. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. There is no good from bullies. Have you met a bully that's, like, been helpful to you? Like, I mean, I guess we could spin it and say, having to, deal with a bully, I've learned to stand up for myself and stuff. But I mean, I also feel like there are other ways to do that without having to get beat up.
Okay, perfect. And thank you. We have something.
There you
I want to find a positive here.
Okay.
Since people do have it, since we have the inner bully, I wanted to find a positive spin on getting rid of it. You know what I
Okay.
mean? The lesson here is it's not helpful.
Yes. We landed right back where we started. Yes, it is not helpful.
No.
That is the lesson. And to try to frame it as something that is good, I mean, I think here's what I will say, and maybe this kind of connects to what it is that you're kind of feeling internally or wanting to kind of be a takeaway for people is that
Mm-hmm.
through adversity, we grow. And so if the inner bully does anything positive, it would be it creates adversity, I think unnecessarily, but it creates adversity to which we have to attend to. And so through that experience, what I'm saying is that the adversity that you're going to have to contend with through your inner bully should lead you to grow to trust yourself more, to lean into accepting yourself and who you are, to let go of perfectionism and accept yourself with flaws and imperfection and recognize that you can still go out and be amazing and do phenomenal things in life and still achieve high heights, and not really live in fear of kind of being this failure or not having the skills that you really do possess. And so if the inner bully does anything positive, it's that it creates an environment where adversity exists. And through that adversity, hopefully you learn to choose you.
Oh, come on. That was all I was looking for.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you
I
for
guess,
bringing it.
right, right. And the hard part for me is to say, well, do you have to have adversity in order for you to learn that piece?
I
Is
would
there a
say
better way?
absolutely. Except if we already have it. I'm saying if we've got it already, let's spin it and then reset.
Okay. Okay, I can go with you on that. I can go with you on that. I can go with
Okay.
you on that. The adversity is already present. Let's do it. We aren't looking for the inner bully and we're not welcoming it. Okay, that's the okay, okay, okay. Now I'm on your team. We're back.
Okay.
We're on the same team.
Okay. And clearly, maybe I didn't say it clearly enough, or because I probably wasn't clear. But then again, that's my inner voice. And
Oh
right.
no,
Okay.
you're good. I mean, I think no, my experience has been is like, let's try to make this thing good. And I'm like, yeah, nah, I don't really, rock with inner bullies in that way. I don't I don't want to make something bad good. It's bad. Let's leave it being bad. Yeah. But I can understand
And
that part. It's all the bad thing's already there. What's something we can glean from that? No different from, you broke your leg. You can cry about the leg being broken and you can, say this is the worst thing that happened to me. Or what are your, how are you going to build yourself back up after having the broken leg? I follow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's still broke. What are we gonna do?
Right. What did you learn from that experience? Is that, well, and I can crawl places or I can use my hands more efficiently than I thought I could. Yeah,
Upper body strength is developed. Whatever.
exactly. Exactly. I got you. I got you. Yes.
Okay. I want to talk about the different things we hear inside ourselves. I mean, there's the intuitive voice, and then there's this critical bully voice.
Ooh.
How do we decipher which one is reality, which is truth?
Oh, I like this conversation. Say more about the intuitive voice.
Well, depending on your frame, I come from that place of mind, body, spirit connection.
Hmm.
For me, the intuitive voice is the still small voice that is my truth, my authentic self. The inner bully isn't. The critic is just somebody who comes in and um, out of insecurity, maybe.
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
exactly sure why. It can mask, for me, the still small voice and become more important than my own truth, which means that I'm under the covers eating ice cream. Just an example. Um,
Per se, like that could be happening. There's no evidence to support
B.
that.
No, not at all.
Yeah. 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 No, I like it. I like it because I was wanting you to kind of explain it to make sure that I like understood it correctly. That the intuitive voice is the more strength based version of ourselves. who builds us up. It makes me, and like I said, I think in analogies, and you know this about me. So it's like the angel and the devil on the shoulder. One saying good things and telling you the truth about who you are, and then the other, the inner bully, being the one that's saying lies and being very negative. And so I think you're absolutely correct that the inner bully has found a way to drown out the intuitive voice, that the parts of ourselves that are responsible for our success or that help us, gain access to rooms that we weren't previously invited in, or that draws people to us because they can clearly see the good that we're doing in the world, or the talent or the abilities. The inner bully will kind of mute that voice, and we will tend to ignore it. And I tend to believe that it's based off of evolutionary psychology and the idea that to keep us safe back in the day, you had to pay attention to danger. You don't survive if you don't know which food is for sustenance or which one can kill you. If you don't know which tracks are prey or which ones are predator, your existence can be short. And so I think that, our brains are trained to kind of gravitate to unpleasantness or things that are bad. And we'll listen to it because the idea is that I need to pay attention to the bad or the expectation or potential of negativity in order to avoid it. Even if there's no evidence to support that you routinely run into negativity or experience it at a high degree or high level. And so, yeah, our brains are kind of designed to listen more to the inner bully than the intuitive voice.
We have an intergenerational bully.
Ooh, that's new. That's
Right?
new language. I like new language.
Very good.
Oh,
Me
keep
too.
talking.
Okay. Love history. And I keep thinking about maybe 2, 3 generations ago. And you're talking about danger, perceiving it, knowing it, being hypervigilant about it, and having your truth beat out of you.
Hmm. Hmm.
How can you
Literally
learn
and
to?
figuratively.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you learn to trust yourself if your truth is being told to you by someone who doesn't care about your internal authenticity and voice?
Right, right. And that some of that was protective. I know this is deep. This is deep. This is deep because it's all protective. And I think that's where the disconnect happens for people, and like they try to frame the inner bully as being protective, but I think it comes out of, like you said, that intergenerational kind of bullying, right? And so we've had parents who were protective of us or did things to try to build us up and make us strong, or to protect us from hardship or bad things, or manage our behavior. And it served to I guess kind of give life to the inner bully, like a place of for it to take up residence. It made it comfortable. Like our brains are now proper uh abodes, or kind of houses for the inner bully to thrive.
Yeah, it was familiar.
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to talk about anybody's parents. They did the best they could
Yes.
with
That
with what they were
same.
given,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It was comfortable, familiar for them. So like, no, you're going to do it this way because they were taught if you don't do it this way, you're going to get hurt
Listen, or worse.
or worse.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep it a thousand, keep it a buck. It'd be worse than that. And so I think that's the thing. I love that you use the language or the term familiar, because that's kind of what it is. And so part of kind of what I do is try to get people to give their inner bully a name so that they can kind of personify it, to distance themselves from it, so that you can say, hey, this is not really me. This is this individual or this entity or this being. And this is that thing trying to get me to believe something that's not true about who I am.
I'm smiling because I have a name for her.
Oh, oh, I like it. Excellent.
Ready?
I'm born ready. Or if not, I'm going to get ready real quick.
Her name is Hortense. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Have you ever heard that name before in your life?
I wasn't ready. I was not ready. You said,
Of
get
course you weren't.
ready. Am I ready? I was not ready.
Hortense. The first time I heard that name, I thought it was a verb.
Right. So you know a Hortense.
Yeah, I
Are they
don't
a
know
good
her.
person?
You know what? It's enough removed that I don't know. I didn't have a great experience with the name of the person.
There you go.
There go.
Inner bully gets it. No, and that's part of the rules I say. I say choose someone who, probably made you feel bad or doesn't get good outcomes or, doesn't really get good outcomes for themselves or gives bad advice. Throw that name on them. And so, yeah, you didn't have a really good experience. So there you have it. Yeah. Hortense.
Yeah, Hortense.
And she's
Um,
loud. Loud. Mm.
she's very persistent,
Hmm.
and a kind of a know-it-all. I think she is.
That part knows you, knows everything about you, apparently, huh?
That and knows how to be demeaning
Yes.
and
Expert.
knows where all the buttons are to push.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't you wake up feeling good about yourself because what we gonna do is go ahead and press that one, and now you feel terrible.
Feel terrible. You're in bed. You got your ice cream. I always go back to food.
There's that
Uh,
ice cream. Ice cream.
you can tell how I'm doing by my freezer. What's
And
happening?
look in your freezer, and if you see a quart, a pint, or tub of ice, we know what's happening in life.
Can we say tub? Come on now. Quart? Let me break.
I was joking. I was joking when I said I was joking. That's not
It's
possible.
really bad when it's a tub. It's really bad.
Oh, yeah, it's like phone a friend. We need to call in.
Gosh, Hortense is on fire. I need
Oh,
help.
reinforcements.
And fortunately, I have a support system. And let's talk about that for a second in terms of um, having people who keep you accountable for the good things you're doing.
I
What if you
love
don't
that.
have that?
It's a rough one, right? Because as human beings, we thrive in community. We live in community. We are social beings, and so the fact that you have a community of support that can help you kind of fend off Hortense's attacks is really good because it's there to remind you that no, you're focusing on this unpleasantness, and also we can't ignore all these other things that happen that have been positive or that are kind of in opposition to what your inner bully is telling you. And community is really important to do that. And for people who haven't kind of established that, it might be really helpful to think about who are the people who are in your corner that you will trust. And I use that intentionally because sometimes people can say nice things and our inner bullies will try to get us to explain away why they might say it, but who are the people that we can trust that will be straight shooters, will tell us the truth, even if it doesn't feel good about ourselves. And so if they're saying things that says, hey, well, I know you feel this way and I know you don't believe this about yourself, but here's what I see. You got to kind of take that into consideration. And so communities are super important to help build us up when we're, kind of struggling or getting beat up that day.
Yeah. Belonging
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
a word that has been coming up a lot in my sessions and just with people in general. And to be honest, with this podcast, Black women north of 50 finding community,
Mm-hmm.
belonging somewhere. You know, the things we're talking about, what I want to bring to this podcast, it's not rocket science.
Right.
It's issues that concern people. And if there's a space to talk about those issues where you feel like you belong, then I want to be a part of that community. And I'm hoping other people will too.
And that's why I'm glad you did this, because it goes back to that conversation around shame, is that, shame will have us operate in isolation. And, if we are allowing our inner bully to kind of take the reins and, we just kind of accept what it says, then we will distance ourselves. We will try to hide because we don't want to be exposed. And so conversations like this that should be normalized to for someone, will happen in isolation, and they will feel like I'm the only one dealing with something like this, and this is the worst thing or the most terrible experience, and how ashamed I am with the idea of like even having to tell someone this because no one will believe me. And I think that that's really an important piece of it, to bring the conversation to the forefront and make it more public so that you can start to connect with other people who feel like you, not to create like this pity party of anything, but to say like, well, no, we can build each other up, we can work kind of together or in tandem to be able to kind of fight our inner bullies.
Right. As you're talking, I'm thinking about what I say to my clients. Like, okay, I don't do victim. Okay. If you're
Mhm.
working with me, then you're trying to find a solution here. No, no judgment on you if you don't want to, but you got the wrong person.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. Um,
I'm laughing because we've known each other a while, and I'm sort of the same way. Like, I think when people think about, therapists, they're like, "Oh, you're all into feelings and emotion." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't do that." Like, to a degree, but at some point, we're gonna have to say, "Okay, now what are we gonna do?" And I'm an action person, so yes, we can have the feels. We can't we can't move in. We can't move in with the feels. We
and
cannot move in.
that's why I think we bounce off of each other well, because I'm more into the feels, and yet I get from you the action steps that are so important, because there's only so much I'm gonna listen to.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so like, all right, what's next, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think I will listen more than you will.
This is true. This is true. I do not argue that. You're absolutely correct. You will listen more than I will. I think even easily as you were asking me earlier, like, well, what if somebody doesn't have community? I was thinking in that moment, I was like, well, that doesn't matter if you don't have community. That doesn't mean you can't still move forward. We will create our own community. This is why you create, things like an evidence sheet. This is why I wrote the journal, because you can start to collect a body of evidence, stuff that your community might tell you, you can just readily access yourself, and you keep the record yourself. And so, yeah, there's always a way to keep moving forward in my book.
Well, there definitely is, but you lost me at collect. Um,
Oh my God.
everything you're saying makes total sense, which is why reading your book, Silencing the Inner Bully, was so, oh man, it was so impactful. The journaling part was so impactful, because, and I'll just be honest with you, I put it aside for a little bit because I didn't want to deal with it.
Oh,
That's what I was talking to you earlier about, hiding from it.
oh, you It's a little self-disclosure there. It's like, yeah, I hid from the book.
Yes,
What?
that
Why would you do that? It's a helpful tool. Why did you run from it?
it's a wonderful, helpful tool, and I wanted to discuss that with you. I can't be the only one
No.
that is afraid to look at that bully,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure why it is. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's the shame piece. Um,
You know what it is? I think
mm,
because you're correct. You're not the only person to, ever purchase the journal and then, bury it under stuff, or not engage with it. And I'll be transparent here about, I'm not really a journaler myself. Like, I'm not someone who just loves to journal. I know you'll say I have a lot of words. I do. But I think through. I think through in my head things. So I don't really write down. My brain just works that way. But I wanted people to like engage in the activity. So like I understand the benefit of kind of, I guess, being tactile. And so thinking about something, then writing it, and like the reinforcement that has. So, kind of thinking about why people distance themselves. I think it could be like, not wanting to look at the inner bully, but there's a part of me that this comes up in my work. People recognize that what they're saying and what the inner bully is saying doesn't make sense. And so there's a part of them that recognizes, and maybe that's what attaches to the shame, is that when you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense to them. So, and I get this frequently, and maybe you've done this to me too when we've been in conversation, uh, where someone will say something, and I will kind of parrot back to them or repeat back to them the words that I heard, and they'll say, "Well, when you say it like that, Stevon, it sounds silly." And I'm like, well, I just regurgitated your words. Like I just repeated back to you what I heard. I thought it sounded silly. Yes. I'm glad you're picking up on that too. And I think that's why people put the book down. Like this is nonsense. Because, again, the inner is a liar.
And clearly I had feelings about what you were talking about and this whole conversation about inner bully. I mean, you were talking about um, having this basically accountability, someone saying the truth to you, and it's not going to blow smoke. It's You're really good at this. Here's what I would change. Here's the challenge. La la la. And it's still hard to hear. Now,
It's rough.
there's a lot of self-disclosure happening today. I get it, but I swear to you that this is something that, well, you're doing the work. It's prevalent in a lot of
Yeah.
people.
It is. It's hard to hear, especially because people are intelligent. Like people who struggle with imposter syndrome and, aren't really adept at kind of beating up their inner bully, they are really intelligent folks. So they recognize that it doesn't make sense and they shouldn't, I don't want to say shouldn't, that it is inappropriate really for them to feel this way, right? Because it's not based in anything rational. It's not logical. It's not supported by any tangible evidence. And so, like you said, like when you get that accountability from your community or from, your own accomplishments that suggests that why are you listening to this person that is saying stuff that isn't real? You have to sit with that for a second. Like, I have been listening to this. Like, why was I listening to this? It's almost like when I think about when people get freed from a cult and then they can see it so clearly of like, oh, I drank the Kool-Aid, all of it. And when they're released from it, they're like, yeah, I was caught up. It didn't make sense. And it's like, yeah, your inner bully convinced you to believe all this stuff about yourself that was not true. And you didn't listen to anyone that was, saying otherwise because you believed it so true because it felt so real.
It reminds me, going back to the differences between men and women, and maybe this isn't even a difference. The more we beat up on ourselves, it's just easier to beat up on another person
Mhm.
and find fault. I find that when I'm working with couples, like, hold on, wait a minute, what?
Yep.
What?
Right. 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 Right.
Can you
No
say
lie.
that
And I think,
nicely? Uh,
oh no, go for it.
I was just
Oh
saying
no,
that.
I was gonna say, and I think for, and you'll, me not being a woman north of 50, I think everybody recognizes that so far. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but like,
You a
I also
youngin',
think
I
that
know.
I think that, women, black women especially kind of operate in a place where I don't even know how to say it, where like the buck stops with them, so to speak. And so there aren't any kind of passes given, I mean, if we think about that intergenerational piece, is that there is you have to get up and do. Even if you don't think you have, there is no opportunity to kind of sit down and relax and you have to be tough. And part of that is being tough on yourself, is that you have to talk yourself into doing things that are difficult when you want to rest. And, the inner bully will feed off of that and it will use it to kind of make you doubt yourself because you don't have the energy and it'll, make you feel terrible about being a mom or being a wife or, being whatever, a friend, a partner, just everything. Because are you doing enough is always the question, because Black women, I think, operate in spaces where they're constantly kind of, given that message, even though it's not the truth. They probably are doing the most in those spaces, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I wonder about Black men, and I wonder about how, even though you're young, and how you all, there's nothing wrong with being young. There's nothing wrong with being young, but you is.
You've been doing this for a minute. Ah.
Because it's true. You young blood. Okay. Back to the point
Mhm,
of, like, I don't know the experience of a Black man. I know that Black men have gone through some stuff,
mhm,
um, generationally, and I'm wondering about how that critic shows up now in our day and age. and how it impacts men in a way that it wouldn't impact women just because we're wired so differently.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think huh, I never thought about that until you just asked that question right now, and, like, the first thing that came up, and I don't even know if this is right or wrong or, but we're processing together,
Hmm.
is that when I think about, just me as a Black man and, me being kind of I I don't even know if it's an imposing stature, but yeah, I mean, in America,
Look, how
being
tall are you?
6'2", 240, that
Black
will make
man.
people fearful of all sorts of things, even though I'm not the person you should be fearful of because that's not even how I roll.
Right.
But it does make me think that like the part that maybe Black men often tend to hide or downplay in spaces is I guess, an array of emotions. So anything that is frustration or being, physical or showing anger, cannot do, uh, because like you talked about those consequences, you can get hurt, or worse. And I think, you know, maybe that's the thing is that we don't express negative emotions in that way, and maybe similar to Black women and not, using their voice, so
Hmm.
to speak.
Yeah. As you're talking, I was thinking the shame piece for Black men has to it's got to run deep.
Mhm.
Given that you all aren't given the opportunity to learn how to process feelings just societally. Um, yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but it's in there. It's in there
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely correct that we've not been taught that. Just and I think that's men across the board, little boys being socialized and how that operates or works, uh, how to contend with emotions and express them appropriately. So, I think about how parents respond to, and again, not dogging parents out, just the response that you get to like a little boy crying versus a little girl crying, and what the attentiveness that goes into comforting, maybe a little girl as opposed to a little boy, and over time what that then does, and I think the message or consequence of that is that men, whether it's uh, appropriate kind of conclusion or erroneous, is emotions aren't for us, right? Which is absolutely wrong because we're all as humans are emotional beings. But yeah, there's I think some shame of not knowing how to, but experiencing it. And not still it's still like being kind of infantile in our ability to address or attend to them.
And it comes out as anger because you
Yep.
don't know what to do with it. It's scary. It's like, no, I'm just going to get mad because I'll get a result. If I'm mad, then
Hmm.
we'll sit up and take notice, which is so sad to me. I think we're
Yeah.
better. I think it's getting better.
Hmm.
I hope so anyway.
Oh, no, for sure. I think the younger generations,
Mm.
the youngins, as you would like to call them, I'm calling them youngins. Yeah, I think that they are more versed and just from, maybe having parents who have a connection to therapy and have developed language to talk about things. They are light years ahead of where, I'm going to say we were. You might try to kick me out, but I'm in there.
Yeah, no, they really are. Um, um, my play nephew, who's 23, and like you, has stature. He's 6'7",
Yeah.
Black man, like 220. Um, fortunately, he has been given the gift of it's okay for you to have some feelings about blah 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 blah. So, in a way that a 23-year-old when you were coming up was
Mm-mm.
not.
Mm-mm.
Like,
Mm-mm. I'm shaking my head. No, that was no, not acceptable at all. Absolutely not. What are you crying for? What is that? Get over it.
get over it. I'll give you something to cry about.
Hmm. Hmm.
All of that. All
All
those
of it.
words that I'm sure, right? Well, Stevon, this has been so enlightening and entertaining and thought provoking that I knew it would be. Um, any closing thoughts you might want to have before I ask you for all of your ways we can find you?
Oh, hmm. I think what I try to tell or any takeaway is, if I can succinctly kind of sum up some stuff is, one, be aware of your language, because language is where kind of reality is shaped for us. And so when you talk about yourself and your word choice and the adjectives you kind of choose, make sure that they are appropriately describing what's happening versus how you're feeling. So it's one thing to say, I suck because you feel like you aren't kind of meeting the mark versus having evidence to support that you're actually not meeting the mark. And so, if that's not the case, then don't frame things in that way. And then the other thing I think would be, start to, I know you don't like the word collect, but start collecting all the evidence, all the data to support that what you're doing out in the world, you're keeping a record of that stuff. Like I tell people, it's really rough for people to kind of talk about themselves or talk about their successes,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, humility or however they want to kind of describe it. But the reality is that there's a place for that stuff. And I'm saying make that time and place more frequent, and I guess broaden it, because it does have purpose. It serves to kind of make you feel good about yourself, make you stay connected to the intuitive, part of you, and, that intuitive voice, and to also kind of, I think, fortify and build you up. And so I think about, if it's not appropriate to talk about or, sing our own praises, then why does a resume exist? Why did I send you my bio? Those things are filled with all the stuff that I've done. And so surely, talking about what I've done and what I've accomplished is a okay thing to do. Then, do it enough times so that your inner bully doesn't have, any ammo to kind of, hurt you.
Yeah, those intergenerational thoughts, patterns, so they're bone deep. And I think you got to be intentional about this kind of work.
Hmm.
Um, and your book does it wonderfully. Um,
Thank you.
you have it on audio through your website.
Oh yeah, there's a digital version. I'm not speaking on it, but it's digital for sure. There's a digital download on my website. You can access it through StevonLewis.com. I use my government name for everything. Or if you go to the journal website, acknowledgementjournal.com, and you can download it. Pay the $9.99, and maybe we'll try to come up with a coupon code for your listeners, and I'll get that to you, and you can send it out to them. They'll get a discounted price or version of that. And then the physical copy is available through Amazon. But again, through my website, click on the physical copy or the of the journal, and it'll take you to the Amazon page to purchase.
The digital version, I'm going to go with that one because I keep going back to that was hard for me to read. Listening to it somehow was easier. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. But where can we find you on social media?
I'm most active on Instagram. That's kind of where I, hang out the most, and I'm post almost daily, and posts that I say build people up. Although sometimes I get mixed reviews, but
Not always the
I
way,
accept
though.
it. Hey, sometimes growth is uncomfortable, and so I'm okay with that. Uh,
Sometimes?
you know what? I didn't want to say it, but you're absolutely correct. Growth is uncomfortable. The
Always.
always 100% of the time. Or, a website, podcasts like this, but I'm posting everywhere that I am, usually on Instagram. And then that's the best way. So that and my website are the best ways to kind of track what I'm doing and putting out in the world. Just started my newsletter back up. So people can go to my website, scroll to the bottom of the page, sign up, and I'm going to do monthly, letting people know about new offerings or just, stuff that's happened over time, or even having a more robust conversation about the inner bully and imposter syndrome, and my expansion conversation of what my new book is about.
Very good. Oh, I can't wait to read your new book. I'll put it on the shelf for a little bit, but I will get to it.
Doing that again.
Stevon, thank you so much. Just so everybody know, Stevon was my boss for, was it 4 years?
Yeah, I think so.
For 4
Yeah.
years? He's
Or
he's
five.
always
Was it
been the
four?
I was 2 you were there in 2014,
Yeah.
so and I left in 2018. So yeah, 4 years.
Yep. Yep.
He's still the boss man to me,
Nice.
particularly about the inner bully. Thank you so much for everything today. I really appreciate it. This has been
Oh,
fun.
thanks for having me on, and I'm so happy to see this come to fruition. We've talked about it, kind of offline for a while. So to know that you're doing this is absolutely, excited to be a part of it and see you continue to grow in this way.
Hortense is not going to win. Mm-mm.
Never, never.
Thanks so much. Huge thank you to Stevon Lewis for leading us on the next step in our journey. He shared some wonderful insight, gave voice to that silent inner bully that haunts some of us, not all of us. If the conversation was something that spoke to you, share it with a friend. Talk about your own inner critic, your own inner voice. I'd love to hear from you. What does your inner critic say? What's her name? Mine is Hortense. She's got a big mouth. Let me know. You can reach me on Instagram at Black Women North of 50, or on YouTube, Black Women North of 50, or website, Wynn, it's WYNN, at blackwomennorth of50.com. Not for nothing. Feel free to subscribe. I won't be mad. Drop me a line. Let's talk about it. And in the meantime, go carefully. Create your own joy. Find some funny. Stay safe.